Very good.
No worries.
Ready
I thought
to
we had a form earlier.
I was so excited to
He was excited to get started.
yeah. I'm still excited.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to a meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Madera County Transportation Commission, including in its designated roles as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, including as a participating agency to the Transportation Policy Committee, Regional Transportation Planning Agency, and the Madera County 2006 Transportation Authority. And moving through the agenda, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, thank you, everybody. Okay, next item is public comment for all the boards and committees that were mentioned. This time is made available for comments from the public on matters within the governing board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Attention is called to the fact that the governing boards are prohibited by law from taking any substantive action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusions should be drawn if the governing board should not respond to public comment at this time. It was requested that no comments be made during the period on items that are on today's agenda. Members of the public may comment on any item that is on today's agenda when the item is called and should notify the chair of their desire to address the board when that agenda item is called. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment under that definition?
Seeing none online.
Seeing and hearing none, thank you. We'll now go to transportation consent items. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a commissioner or member of the public would like to pull for further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll accept the motion for action.
Move to approve the consent.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify.
Need to ask for public comment.
You did.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Okay, let's move on to item 5A, the legislative update.
Item. Okay, so included in your package, there's 2 items. One is a staff report from Gus Corey, and the other one is an updated matrix. And Gus is joining us here this afternoon. He will be providing us with an update on some of the legislation that took place and action took place in June before the legislature left for recess. They are currently in recess, and he will share with us some of the activity that should be taking place when they return in August. And there are a couple of bills of interest one to support, one to support if amended, and 2 that we will be watching. And I'll let Gus dive a little bit deeper into that and provide us with an update.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Director Taylor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Gus Corey, State Legislative Advocate. Apologies in advance. Of course, there's a summer recess, and so my body hit a wall with all the activity going on in Sacramento. Legislature went on recess on July 3rd. They'll be back on August 3rd, and then they'll have until August 31st to dispense with all items. It's the end of the 2-year session, and then a new class is sworn in November. So the biggest items remaining are on Cap and Invest. The legislature did pass a state budget on time as required by the Constitution. So it's a $351 billion spending plan, which is a record. They have a $35 billion surplus, none of it which really goes to transportation. They're hedging. We were able to get a surplus because of the surge in the economy, especially as it pertained to capital gains on AI stocks. We literally play the stock market to balance the general fund. Corporate taxes, personal income tax, and capital gains make up the lion's share of revenues that the state acquires in order to balance the budget. And education gets 50 cents on the dollar, and they still do anticipate a structural deficit of about $20 billion. But this budget is supposed to correct for all of what remains in 26-27, and then the first half of fiscal year 27-28. So one item of interest that was enacted in the transportation trailer bill, this is Senate Bill 169, was for transit operators that have difficulty in meeting their fare box recovery ratio requirements. There is an extension of that relief so that the MPO, so in this case, Madera doesn't have to ding our operator for not meeting fare box if they fail to meet that standard. So that covers fiscal year 26-27. There would be a grace year for 27-28, so you wouldn't have to ding them until fiscal year 28-29 if they were non-compliant. But we're hoping that there will be some additional statutory fixes overall with just how we operate public transportation service. But that might be meaningless if the legislature keeps clawing back money that we've been promised. And so we know that gas tax revenues have been in decline. We're starting to see the cliff there. So that has an impact on the public transportation account. So funding for intercity passenger rail service, for local streets and roads, for highway maintenance, et cetera. I think as we all know, sales tax on diesel revenues have been down just because there's less consumption there. And now with Cap and Invest, you might recall that we were supportive of extending cap and trade in order to maintain some of the funding for things like transit capital and operations, intercity passenger rail service, and then even to the extent that some jurisdictions are pursuing affordable housing, the pot for that, air quality conformity, funding. And what happened is industry decided that they weren't going to buy the credits because the Air Resources Board was trying to tighten the screws on what they called leakage. So leakage is where industry goes outside and like imports energy, say from Texas, and we've done this frequently for decades on end here. And so that's a way maybe to skirt California's more stringent greenhouse gas emission requirements. And so industry just said, well, we're not going to buy the credits. So what that did is it tanked the cap and trade pie, going from about a $4.5 billion pie to $3 billion. And then Governor Newsom decided that, hey, we've been given rebates since 2014, but we want to increase the amount of rebates for ratepayers because utility rates have been going up. We don't know how much, what that's going to result in. The PUC is going to decide in October on that. But in May, the Air Resources Board had authorized the start of a brand new program, which is an industry subsidy for purchasing the credits. So in total, what that does is it wipes out the funding for transit capital and operations, for affordable housing, all these things that we've pursued funding for, which then makes it even that much more challenging for us to address the highway side or the local streets and roads side of things, because as you know now, everything is contingent upon getting a sustainable community strategy approved through the Air Resources Board in order for you to even be eligible to pursue the Senate Bill 1 funding. And so the legislature punted on this issue. They plan to take it up in August. The only solution that most folks have come up with is to say, hey, let's just take from the $35 billion surplus. But the problem with that is that it is one-time money. They have a structural deficit. Education gets 50 cents on the dollar. Then there's health and human services. So anytime transportation goes up against one of those sectors, we lose. So one solution that we had come up with is, since 2011, the legislature's been diverting truck weight fees to pay down bond debt service. So this is about $1.3 to $1.4 billion worth of revenue that's collected in perpetuity. It's indexed, and it's used to pay Prop 1B from 2006, Prop 116 from the early 90s, which I think they just retired. Prop 192, also from the early 90s, that was a seismic retrofit bond. And more recently, the high-speed rail bond. So I was told at first, well, Gus, we can't use those funds because now you're going to put another hole in the general fund, and the general fund's going to be obligated to pick up the slack. except a couple weeks after I had that conversation, the legislature passed Senate Bill 417. So Senate Bill 417 was authored by the current Senate President Pro Tem Monique Limon, and it's an $11.25 billion affordable housing bond that's going to be placed on this November's ballot. So the state already has about $71 billion worth of bond debt service. They're going to add 11 more if this thing passes. And so I think for me, it's like, well, I'm just asking for a portion of the $1.3 billion for the next 5 years in order to keep us whole so that you're not poaching from programs that we're relying upon to be compliant with our SCSs, to be competitive for the Senate Bill 1 programs. And so I'm hoping that that message resonates. The wild card in this equation is the speaker, because the pro tem is out there saying, you know what, a deal was a deal on cap and invest. We should be honoring that deal. The governor's not going to negotiate against himself. And so it's really up to the speaker, who was really concerned about the leakage issue, to find alternative solutions. And to be quite honest, this is the only one that I could think of where it doesn't have a direct general fund impact. And, just like with bond debt service, you could always accelerate payments. You could repackage, refinance, things. We do it all the time. So I'm hoping that this is sort of a stopgap, because if you think about cap and invest, there's two things here. One, if you go back to cap and trade, the whole reason why we did cap and trade was to fund, under Governor Brown, was to fund high-speed rail. That was his thing, is he wanted a sustainable source of funding for high-speed rail. Secondly, by design, cap and invest is supposed to sunset, because at some point, you're not doing any more mitigations. You can't. You've met your targets, theoretically. So we're going to need an alternative source, and this is something that Chair Poythress has talked about ad nauseum, is for folks to get more serious about the gas tax. We need something more predictable, more stable, that's insulating us from all this volatility that happens with the general fund and other things. But I guess in short order, if we're able to push, I'm hoping successfully, for them to reevaluate the use of the truck weight fees, that can maybe give us a little bit of a breather here with respect to our planning, maintaining service, the whole 9 yards. I know I spoke to Director Taylor earlier because she's now chairing the San Joaquin Valley directors meetings. And then, some of us, here are members of the Policy Council. So, Rob and Jose, we really appreciate your participation there. So we're hoping to make a push with our delegation and just kind of, increase the intensity here for them to have a resolution here in the waning weeks of session. So I'll stop there. I know I said a lot, but just really want to give you that context before I get into the 4 bills that Director Taylor mentioned, but just want your feedback, and if you have any questions or comments on cap and invest.
Very good. Any questions? Guess not. All right. Well,
Okay. So just very quickly, because this came up too, the governor struck a deal with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and the Chamber of Commerce. And so there's going to be a constitutional amendment placed on this November's ballot, ACA 22. What it does is it grandfathers in every measure that's passed by a majority plus one. So anything less than 2/3. But starting January 1 in 2027 forward, everything has to be a 2/3 vote. So this is including your general sales tax and your measure renewals. So wearing your, mayor's hat or city council member hat or supervisor's hat, if you guys have something for police and fire, you name it, you're going to have to get 2/3 if this thing passes. So maybe a discussion for another day, but I just want to plant the seed, just given your various affiliations with CSAC, the League of Cities, CalCog, et al. So the 4 bills, as Director Taylor mentioned, AB 2168, this was a bill that we had opposed. We're now recommending a watch position. The reason being is originally the bill was structured so that we would have to program more of our STIP capacity, our State Transportation Improvement Program funds. This is our our formulaic distribution of gas tax money that's flexible that you guys can use on highways, on mass transit guideways, on active transportation, whatever you want, in order to be more competitive for active transportation planning grants at the state level. And that was just going to favor the larger counties. It would have put us at a further disadvantage. So thankfully, the author had amended that bill. And what it's asking now is that there just be more of a correlation to building out an active transportation network, or if there's any sort of synergy with transit stations, etc. So we're recommending a watch on that one. Senate Bill 667. This was a bill that we had opposed. Reason being is that it would have required Union Pacific, BNSF to the south, so the host railroads, in having to install wayside detection devices. And these are in addition to positive train control in order to limit accidents on rail lines. And there was an accident back in Ohio, nothing in California, that labor groups were trying to push. And it would have been an unfunded mandate on us because, the railroads, even if they could, if it didn't violate the Commerce Clause, it would have required us to foot the bill because they just would have passed on the cost to us, or to ACE or others, and it could have really hindered passenger rail service within the region. So, but the current version of the bill just asks the PUC to take inventory of the various grade separations throughout the state and decide which ones they should eliminate or improve, essentially. So, a watch on that one. Senate Bill 741. This bill was a gut and amend. Senator Blakespear, she's from San Diego County, and what she wants to do is eliminate the requirement that when you use your LCTOP funding, so this is from Cap and Invest, it's a low carbon transit operations program that you use for operations, to remove the requirement to use those funds and demonstrate a greenhouse gas reduction benefit, which is very difficult for folks when you're just trying to maintain existing service. And so she's stripping that requirement out of the bill. And my apologies in the memo. The bill originally had a provision there where you didn't have to spend up to half the money in a disadvantaged community, but the author did take amendments in committee to remove that. I just didn't catch it in time before publication, but still recommending a support position on that bill. And then last but not least, main bill of the year for most MPOs in the state is Senate Bill 1087. What this bill does is it streamlines the process for the production of the sustainable community strategies. So we currently have to do one every 4 years. There's a lot of expense. It takes ARB forever in order to validate our plans, which then inhibits our ability to apply for state grant programs. And what this bill does is it pushes out. We only have to do this once every 8 years. You don't have to do an alternative planning scenario that gets folded into the SCS. There's regional target setting. We've talked ad nauseum about one size fits all doesn't work for the Valley. So now there's going to be advisory committees where we can locally establish some reasonable targets that we can meet. ARB has to adopt these plans within 60 days and give you feedback within 30, which is a market improvement. And we would save money in that process so that we're not getting strung along for 2 years before we get an answer on things. And so the recommendation is a support if amended. The amendment, in my mind, Mr. Chair and members, was since we're seeing what's happening, the state's looking at this stuff in a silo. If they're going to eviscerate funding, this plan is sort of meaningless. So my thing is, if they're going to take away the funding, I don't want the plan to be invalidated because then we can't meet our greenhouse gas emissions and then we can't apply for anything as a result. So we want some language in there that, they have to be able to respect that we're doing everything that's within our control. And if there is any sort of default on state funding, that's on the state, but it shouldn't disqualify us from accessing state revenues because that's only going to exacerbate the problem for everybody statewide. So I'll stop right there, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Very good. Any questions? Mr. Chair, on that SB 1087, Gus, if amended, how would we see this come through? Because right now we're taking a position of oppose. We're not opposing, but we're watching to oppose if amended. If not amended, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, it's a support if amended. We were originally a watch on that one because we knew that there were going to be substantive amendments. So I just didn't want to get you guys too far in front of committing to something without knowing what's basically more of a finished product as the bill is now. So we're recommending a support if amended just to make sure, again, as a smaller county that has to leverage state funds in order to deliver projects that they just take into account that that's out of our control if state funding winds up being questioned.
Yeah, so I think what you said earlier is that if this is not amended, then to reach those SES targets would not be attainable based on what's taking place with funding, right? So that's why we're watching it. If amended, then we go for it, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, very good. I just have a question as well on that 1087. You mentioned an advisory committee if things happen. Who would be on that advisory committee and how do they pick the members of the advisory committee? Because that
Yeah.
could be a disaster. I mean, if they get all these, organizations and justice groups and et cetera, to, dominate those advisory committees, we're not in a very good position.
It's casting a wide net, and the legislation itself does have guardrails, safeguards as far as the targets have to be reasonable, and you get to articulate why you can't meet those targets. For example, we don't have the same population growth as other parts in the state. Our the distances that people have to drive in order to get to work or school, or if it's goods movement, which is entirely out of our control. We can't control interstate or even national commerce with people shipping 50% of all imports and exports out of Oakland or Long Beach, Los Angeles. I mean, these are things that need to be factored in to the equation. So the bill tries to have that balance. But yeah, it's going to be a wide net. So I would expect local governments, MPOs, um, statewide bodies such as the Air Board, maybe even the Transportation Commission, among with environmental justice groups or just other communities of interest. It's going to be a fairly inclusive process.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. And then the other question I have, you mentioned 2168, and I heard you say something about tying projects to transit or something. Maybe you could mention that again, what that was about?
Yeah, so what the bill does is they don't want people just nominating a project in a silo. Like, does it enhance your current infrastructure? Does it tie into a transit station? Does it provide more access for a community in order to get from point A to point B? Just trying to get people to be more intentional about the utility of the project that they're proposing, that they're offering up.
So does it have any kind of consideration for the San Joaquin Valley? Because I think about the metropolitan areas and a lot of the projects, maybe involve linking to a transit stop or whatever, but we don't have that here. Is that going to hurt our projects moving forward on 99 and other places? Because as you know, these things just don't quite make sense here in this area. That
Right.
I don't think they make a lot of sense in the urban areas, let alone making sense here.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the priority consideration. It's just adding it into the construct of the program. But remember, the active transportation program allows for us to fund things like safe routes to school. I know like Chowchilla has been working on a project, and so we're hoping that it would be an opportunity for them. As far as look, I mean, having our project come to fruition would provide more safety and access for the community just within the region. So yeah, it was adding another variable, into the mix just to get some of these folks to be more intentional about telling their story.
Well, I'm not sure if you heard me or not, but I don't want it to hurt our 99 project and so forth, because as you know, we're not adding any more greenhouse gases on those things. We're not adding any more VMT. and walking and riding your bike and transit are not alternatives to, finishing 99. So I just don't want, again, have that variable come in and affect, because we haven't finished it yet. We're a long ways away and we're still in the battle, so
Right.
that's my concern.
It wouldn't, this would in no way, I think, impact anything that we have going on State Route 99. If anything, we worked to be eligible for a separate program, the Solutions for Congested Corridors program, outside the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. So TSEP is 800 million. We worked to have a corridor mobility plan, which oddly enough is no longer required in 1087, but we will be eligible to pursue up to funding from a $250 million pot, 500 million over the cycle, to make improvements on 99. ATP is just much more prescriptive on off-network, type projects.
Gotcha. Okay, very good.
And I'll just add this, but if we had to tell a story, I'm sure our chair here can provide you quite a bit of stories, and we can certainly make a case that widening 99 would certainly help a lot more active transportation. I can assure you that.
There you go.
He tells the best stories. Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you. Any other questions in regards to that? All right. Very
You have an
good.
action.
Okay, you have an action. I was just going to say, is there any more?
No, just on the bills, Mr. Chair. Yeah, to change the
Right.
positions.
Very good. Super. If there's no other questions, any questions from the public, any comments, any?
Never mind.
Very good. All right. So we have watch, support, and support if amended. Okay. We have 4 bills, but I think we have in the report, I think there's only
2 that are
3.
watch, 1 that is support, and 1 that is support
Okay,
is amended.
gotcha. All right. Next, the SB 667. It didn't say watch, but it was under that watch category. Okay, so
I'll move to approve item 5A.
okay. Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. All right.
Thank you.
Got a lot of agreement out there on the street. Even a fire engine. All right. Very good. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to 5B.
Thank you. Item 5B is regarding the draft 2026 RTP and SCS, the draft program environmental impact report for that plan, draft corresponding conformity analysis, and the draft 2027 FTIP. I have a couple of slides to summarize these 4 documents, why we're having a public hearing today, what the documents are. Oh, I forgot I have control with that. No. So I think everyone up here, I almost spoke too soon. I know a lot of you have experience with these RTP-SCS. We do one every 4 years. It is our comprehensive long-range transportation plan. It outlines a vision of our transportation needs and goals and our proposed projects to meet those goals throughout this region. It typically covers about 20 to 30 years. It's a 20-year minimum. Our current RTP is 2026 to 2049. Let's see. So there is quite a bit that goes into this. I said it's comprehensive, so it's countywide, the county and both cities. We even look beyond our county borders for travel activity to look for our gateway corridors as well. Next slide. Now, a significant component of this RTP, as we discussed quite a bit, even in the last item, pretty much every board meeting, is the addition of a sustainable community strategy. This was introduced in 2006 by the state. It aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by promoting land use and transportation policies that encourage more compact, walkable, trans-storied and development, or just simply a manner of planning our land uses in a way that maybe makes more sense than everyone having to drive significant distance for every single use. Having uses that are closer to where people live and work, that are complementary of each other in our travel patterns and behavior. We have a mandate from the state regarding this greenhouse gas emission reduction that we are looking for in the SCS. California Air Resource Board has mandated a 16% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the year 2035 compared to what that level was in 2005 per capita. So whatever the pollution we were having per person in 2005, we have to reduce that by the year 2035 by 16%. There's quite a bit of strategies we can look at to achieve that. Land use development is one of the biggest ones, as I mentioned in the previous slide, where we work, where we live, and that relationship to all the places we have to go and strategies we can think of to address that travel behavior is a big component of our strategies to meet that mandate by the state. Now, when we think about the state's goals for greenhouse gas, that it really doesn't end there. We have a ton of goals locally. We have a lot of things happening here that are important to all people that live and work here. The best way for us to get a better understanding for that is going out in our community, talking to people. That's one of the first things we did for this plan when we kicked it off, actually, was to develop our public outreach plan. If you remember, in 2024, that was approved by this board. So we have been out quite a bit, and we've seen a lot of you at the places we've been as well. Our fairs, community events, we've hosted many public workshops in person, online, in communities. We worked with a committee of stakeholders that also guided our process through this, folks that are from the workforce development area, public education, public health, farmland, tourism, our transit providers, quite a few others as well, CBOs. We also were active on social media in English and Spanish. We had our website that really documented how to get involved, how to understand what we're doing better. And we had quite a few online activities to get feedback as well, mapping exercises that ask people what they think about land use and growth in Madera County. Value checks where we really find out, what's important as you consider the way you travel through our county today and what's important in the future. We also had surveys that looked at different scenarios we've developed for this plan. One of the things that is required of an SCS is to do scenario planning. We have to create multiple scenarios to find the best path for our region to meet those goals that SB 375 establishes. Now, 3 months ago, we brought those scenarios to you, and this board did select a preferred scenario for this plan, which becomes the basis of what we do a lot of our final analysis on in the draft documents that are out today. So I mentioned scenario planning. I just wanted to cover those again quickly. We did have 3 scenarios we developed for this plan. Our scenario A kind of carried forward our 2022 RTP. We also had a scenario B and C added this time based on some of the feedback we got. Scenario B was more focused on different transit options, transit that's able to join new development better, and development that likewise can do the same. Having a proximity where available. It's not just anywhere and everywhere, but where land uses, when your general plans dictate that kind of growth can occur, we would focus those land uses around our transit corridors. And likewise for scenario C, which was an affordable housing option, having more options than only just single family detached units, things that maybe make more sense in some communities where there's more urban core, more services, and more need to access those services as well. We're able to use your general plans to find suitable areas to have that intensity of development occur for that scenario. We did quite a bit of outreach after developing these scenarios. After we ran these scenarios in our travel demand model, we did more outreach on that as well to get info from the public based on how those scenarios performed. And again, here's some info about scenario C. Scenario C, the affordable housing, really performed the best in a lot of the metrics we looked at as we were able to take our technical data from building these scenarios for our tools. Things such as greenhouse gas reduction, a big important one based on SB 375, it was able to perform the best. VMT per capita, total vehicle hours traveled, which is a sign of how much congestion will be in the region. There's a lot of good factors that performed well with that scenario. We presented those results to the public and they agreed that seemed like a scenario that should go forward. as well as our transportation SCS committee that we talked about before. They also felt scenario C was appropriate, so that was selected by this board. There's details about those results with some of the numbers. They don't mean a lot, I guess, by themselves, but if you compare the scenarios against each other, that gives you an idea of what trends towards better results, which scenario C was able to do for a lot of our key performance indicators. But to get these results, there is quite an extensive process. I did mention our model just before. That really is quite the endeavor that we take to do the modeling. It's a sophisticated piece of analytical software that's built specifically for our county. The model helps estimate how people and goods will travel throughout this region today and importantly into the future. So we analyzed our forecasted travel conditions and it's a required element, especially on the federal and state side for emissions analysis. When we get an idea of what's happening on our local roads, the way people travel, we're able to take that information and do extensive analysis for emissions. What does that travel mean based on various criteria, pollutant emissions that the federal government has for us? They each have a different relationship to every mile traveled. Some vehicles, it's not just emissions, I should point out. Sometimes it's a vehicle that creates emissions that don't come from the car itself, such as a large big rig truck traveling down a road with no shoulder that kicks up a lot of dust. We're even doing analysis for things like that in this plan, not just from the tail. So I do have a diagram here that's like a crash course 101 on the process our model takes to get to these results, to satisfy these requirements. I'll try to not get too deep in the weeds on doing that because it can be, it's a process, but we do start with building a model of today, our housing and employment, those two categories. If you recall, some of you, I think, were on our board last year when we presented the final Madera County demographic growth and forecasting study. That's our effort to get a good idea of where we are today, who is here, where they are, what's the composition and socioeconomic profile of their household, their family, and where in the county are they, as well as a projection of the future conditions. And we did that through interviews with your local agencies, again, review of your plans and getting a good idea of what is happening in Madera County so that projection could be as accurate as possible compared to simply relying on Department of Finance state data, which is a lot less detailed, has a lot less information we can use in this modeling process. A lot of the things that were in that demographic study can translate directly into our tool. So it's very useful. We use that for our base here, as well as projecting future conditions. And we're able to tailor the different scenarios with those essentially being our fence lines of, where what we have to work within. We don't really stray far away from what the data tells us we should expect from those projections. And then, of course, mixing that with the general plans. Sorry, I feel like I'm getting in the weeds. There's so much looping and iteration in a lot of these things. But the next bubble there is our transportation network, a very important element of it. That's our roadways. For the modeling process, it's only the roadways the vehicles use, minus our smallest local roads, our significant roadway network, we call it. Now, I do want to point out the RTP-SCS itself, if you go to the appendices, has an extensive list of transportation projects, several $1 billion, almost 1,000 projects over the next 30 odd years. But we only take the significant roadway projects with emission factors for the modeling process to satisfy our state and federal requirements. So that would be anything that increases lane miles, even something that adjusts the speed limit on a road can have an emissions factor that would need to be assessed and addressed. Slower cars produce more pollution because they're going less distance but using the same amount of fuel. So there's even things to that degree that we have to be on the watch out for. When we're able to combine those, where people are, where they live and where they work, how many of them are there, as well as the transportation network they're using to get from point A to point B, that essentially represents what we run in a model, and that gives us the travel data as the output. We're able to take state tools from that travel data to analyze the emissions for various requirements at the state or federal level. California Air Resource Board builds the emission model that we use, that we plug our transportation data from our model into to complete that analysis. So there's other factors here that are unique for California's RTPs and the SCS. We induce travel in our model. This is the if you build it, they will come philosophy from the state that says if you build 1 mile of roadway expansion of capacity, you're going to induce 10 million miles of VMT per year, regardless of what the reason you're building that is. It can be a little tough in a rural county where we don't have a lot of options always to mitigate that, but it's something that we do incorporate into this as a requirement by the state. That plays in, as I mentioned, only to the state side. We don't do that for the federal side, only the state. So we're able to do an analysis using CARB's MFAC model to satisfy our federal requirements for conformity and the SB 375 greenhouse gas requirements. The process that we take that I'm describing here, we met with ARB like 4 or 5 times to kind of put everything on the table about all our tools, how we're using them, how they're built, the whole process, because they need to buy off on our technical methodology, and they did earlier this spring. Let's see. We do a similar process with the federal government and the EPA. That's related to our conformity document. There's extensive consultation between all the agencies, and they also approve the methodology we use for the conformity. So I think that really covers the process we get to these results that are so important for us. Let me get out of modeling. Yeah. So just to cover what's in the drafts that have been available for people to review, our introductory chapter just gives us the regional setting. We talk about some of the success stories we've seen in the SCS era, some significant projects that have been awarded competitive funding that have really helped in our communities, as well as some of our significant planning efforts that have really supported those. Our chapter 2 is the equality element, where we take a lot of what we learn from the public to establish goals, vision, objective, and strategies, and how do we best tailor those to make sure that we're addressing our mandated requirements from our state and federal partners as well. Chapter 3 really goes into detail about a lot of the modeling methodology I mentioned, how we arrive at our SCS results. Our SCS results I mentioned were 16% reduction. After everything we were able to accomplish, we were about 15.98, which is by ARB's precedent is acceptable to round that to a 16, because they know this is not perfectly exact science, but we've really made the effort to surpass that. Chapter 4 would be our action element. This is our largest chapter. It goes into in-depth detail about pretty much everything. Our transit systems, the services available, some of the different strategies like ZEB, as well as our coordinated and strategic efforts on the state highway system with our partners, how our main streets work in our communities and our cities, some of the significant projects that are kicking off this year and in the next few years. I think, we had our ribbon cutting just last week for 145 in downtown. There's quite a few actually that are kicking off in the next couple of years, so that's exciting. But it goes into depth on everything from highways down to what's the last section, and that might be ITS, which is the Intelligent Transportation System. That's synchronization of signals, metering signs, a lot of the technical programs. And then we have our appendices where we have things like our demographic study, the technical methodology we negotiated with ARB is included in that. Quite a bit of the technical analysis and supporting documentation for our modeling tools, as well as an extensive report on the outreach conducted during this plan, as well as the outreach plan itself that I mentioned we first approved in early 2024. Now, there are some other items as well, other plans that are out. The RTP SCS has a program environmental impact report attached to it as well that evaluates any any environmental concerns that may come from the development of this plan in the future. It's been prepared in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, as well as state CEQA guidelines. Any effects of implementing this RTP-SCS and identified mitigation measures where appropriate are identified in the plan. It's important to note the EIR for our RTP-SCS does not act as the standalone EIR for every project in there. There's almost 1,000 projects. Some of those are going to warrant their own environmental document. This doesn't really cover those in that necessary manner. This is more the program approach that looks at the comprehensive cumulative effects of everything that's contained within our RTP. We also have our 2027 Federal Transportation Improvement Program. This we do every 2 years. It's on the same cycle with the RTP, with one happening in between every RTP as well, as dictated by federal mandate. It's a fiscally constrained program identifying federally funded transportation projects that are proposed for implementation over the next 4 years. So this looks at 2027 through 2030, those projects that are in the immediate pipeline with federal funding expected. It follows our federal transportation and planning and programming requirements. There is extensive consultation with EPA and all of our valley agencies on developing this, as well as the California or the state programming group that meet pretty regularly. And this is vital in maintaining our region's eligibility for federal funding going forward, and really state funding as well. Even though it's a federal document, these are all very closely tied together in how they work. I mentioned our draft conformity earlier. This is the 4th document that is currently under review. And that's just an analysis demonstrating that the draft RTP, SCS, and draft FTIP will conform to our applicable federal air quality requirements. It's made in accordance with the Clean Air Act, as well as our federal partners. It demonstrates that our projected transportation emissions remain consistent with the state implementation plan. That's something handled by the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. This is related to that effort, and it supports our continued eligibility for federal transportation funding once again. Now, we did actually put quite a bit of additional time and resources on conformity this go around, because there has been an extensive amount of activity related to emissions in California and the federal government over the past 3 years that have made things anything but normal as we approach the development of this. There was the Clean Air Act rescission that we talked about in 2024 and 25. MFAC had to rebuild significant portions of the models that we are supposed to use to do our federal analysis for air quality. And that brought a lot of uncertainty on. What we learned after getting those models and running is that everybody is on the edge throughout the valley. The valley's hurt essentially by losing those waivers. We had to take new approaches where we joined collectively on especially on our 2008 ozone requirement. There was going to be the only way our valley could pass conformity based on the new models we're using. And really having there's not really a way to get the models that everyone was going to need to use for this process, and then be able to react and change the plan in an adequate manner that had already been created to satisfy those. So we've taken that new approach with this. Certain counties, essentially, maybe if we got that new model a couple of years ago, there would be time to do more work and make a different plan. But the timeline on the federal conformity side especially has been very crunched by this. Everyone's kind of been in a waiting game, and we get the new model and figure out what's going to happen when we run it now. So there was a lot of extra work, a lot of extra testing that's going around on conformity than we've ever done before. Working with Trinity Consultants is ours, as well as the 7 other MPOs in the Valley's air quality consultant on this. So we are happy to report the Valley expects to pass conformity, which was not always something we thought we were going to be able to say maybe 4 or 5 months ago when everyone was going crazy. But that's where we are today with our plans and what's depicted in our draft. So we are excited about that. With that, these 4 documents, they work in unison together to form a coordinated transportation planning vision that satisfies our federal and state planning requirements. It establishes a long-range vision, supports near-term investment, and positions our county to remain competitive for future funding opportunities. I would take if there's any questions for staff before we turn this over for a public hearing, I could take those.
Very good. Any
I have a
questions?
Yes.
comment, and then it's not really asking for a answer, but when we set these sustainable communities strategies, I know I saw the chart there that you were showing the elements of housing and what have you. Where does the economic engine come into play, especially for areas like ours, where we focus a lot on the transportation, the framework, and then the reduction of all these things that they want us to do to bring down greenhouse gases. But in general, I see that the affordable housing becomes a burden because you really don't have anything that you're producing, no outcome, no business investment that's producing jobs. And I mean, the projects may, but the investment is not there. So therefore, housing just becomes more expensive because people have to travel further, and you're still going to have to reduce the greenhouse gases if these folks are traveling farther to get decent wages to afford the housing. So I don't know, it's like a vicious cycle that we're in.
But say there is a loop here of what you're describing. It's an issue that me and my peers, the other side, have to talk about frequently, especially when we're considering the process we have to go through for this. The economic conditions that see throughout the valley, that the people that make the furthest trips need to. That's because that's where they can afford housing. Yeah, and it traditionally pushes them out of the poorest, whereas some of the development you might envision could happen, or is more likely to, perhaps.
So at the core of your chart there is housing and affordable housing. But I just walked into Mr. Prestoresi's office and I saw his sign for $125,000 starting at payments of $860. And I asked him, where are those homes? Well, that's 30 years ago. So what I was trying to get at is now if you flip it over, that's probably more appropriate. It's $521. Pretty much is what it's looking like. But that's pretty expensive. So I guess I'm not trying to derail any of this. I'm just saying to be mindful to add some of the investment in local businesses, because without them, you don't create jobs. And without creating jobs, then it's harder for us to have people to sustain what we call affordable housing, because truly they're not. And again, this is nothing against what we're doing, because I think we have a boilerplate that we have to follow to be able to meet the state's requirements of greenhouse gases. But at the end of the day, I feel like I don't know if we're going to be sustainable. 4 years, it's evolving, right? We change these plans every 4 years. Just wanted to make that comment because I see it over and over, and it seems like it's just a common theme about housing, affordable housing. And it's in about every single plan that we do, from the housing elements over with the BEEP or any other document that has to be prepared has to have some type of housing element. So those are my comments. I didn't want to drag this out.
No, I totally get it.
I can already see my friend here probably starting to fall asleep here. But anyways, thank you. I just want to add those comments in the future.
No, I get it.
I feel like I listened to you for another hour tonight.
So you get to listen. So Dylan, first of all, I'd just like to thank you for all your great work and hard work. I know you put your heart and soul and the team and other teammates and all that. So thank you so much. It's really great. Just have a question in regards to one of the calculations. Whenever you look at automobiles, is there like a certain miles per gallon that you look at? I'm sure that there's probably some percentage of hybrid cars that are added into the equation, a certain percentage of electric cars, and then maybe that percentage of electric cars, increases over a certain period of time. I'm guessing that's in the
There's a
calculation.
very deep rabbit hole about all that. Now, generally, California Air Resource Board deals with that. They, especially in their MFAC model, they have a projection of what the vehicle fleet is going to look like. And I believe there's 25 different on-road vehicle categories, everything from the biggest big rig you can imagine to like mopeds and off-road, on-road bikes. So for SB 375, there's 4 types that we look at: light and medium duty passenger vehicles, light and medium duty trucks. We don't look at big rigs. On the federal side, we look at all 25 of those. But for SB 375, it's just those 4. It's just your general, what they consider your general passenger type vehicle. No heavy vehicles, no big rigs or buses.
So they don't consider electric cars.
They do, I'm sorry, they do consider what type of cars, what type of fuel. There's extensive estimation and projection of everything from how much it will cost to operate a vehicle. In fact, vehicle operating cost is one of our big components that moves the needle. The more cheap you make it to operate a vehicle, the more VMT we get in our results. So that's an interesting category too. That's really similar to, is it EV or is it regular still?
Isn't California beautiful? All right, very good. If there's no other questions, then what we'll do is we'll open up the public hearing. And do you have any language?
I'll have a closing slide too after the hearing.
Okay, great. So this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment in regards to this presentation?
Being none online.
Anybody online? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My closing slide was just going to be the schedule going forward. We have our public draft review dates. Those open June 15th for the RTP-SCS. That's 55 days, goes to August 8th. The EIR, June 19th to August 2nd, 45 days. They all have different mandated review periods. And our draft conformity and our draft FTIP have the same 30-day review period. That's the 19th of June through July 18th. Let's see, the next is our public hearing dates. This does have a typo. It says June 22nd for today's hearing, but it should say July 22nd. Just wanted to point that out. We'll have an additional RTP-SCS public hearing in September. That mandates 2 public hearings. Then for our certification and plan adoption, I did want to point out our original plan was to do the August meeting. We were informed by EPA that the Valley MPOs should move their adoption dates back to September based on some of the ozone rulemaking that they've been working on that just didn't quite make it to the finish line in accordance with our draft schedules throughout the Valley. So we are going to accommodate that to make sure that we are asking to approve and adopt a conformity that has all the T's crossed and the I's dotted on the EPA side for their activity. That'll have another notice to make sure it's clear. Our original notice did still have the original August date. And so, yeah, I don't believe we're meeting in August anymore. So September is when we'll have that next hearing. And then we'll bring back all of our comments and then our final versions of the EIR and the FTIP RTP and conformity and bring it for you to consider certification and adoption.
Very good. Thank you. So at this point, we'll close the public hearing. And that is what we do. There's no other action. So, okay. Again, thank you very much. Madera County Transportation Commission reaffirm all actions taken while sitting as a transportation policy committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Let's move on to the administrative consent items. Are there any items that the commissioner or a member of the public would like to have for further discussion? If not, I'll accept the motion for action. To approve.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And we will now move to the Madera County 2006 Transportation Authority. We have the administrative consent items. Are there any commissioners or members of the public who would like to have any items for further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Motion for action. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item 10, authority action discussion items. This is a public hearing for the MT fiscal year 26-27 annual work program.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. After the required 30-day review period, this item is before you today to conduct a public hearing on the fiscal year 26-27 Measure T annual work program. I think consider its approval. The annual work program for AWP is prepared annually and serves as the funding authority for the Measure T program. It identifies the funds available for projects consistent with the Measure T investment plan and outlines each local jurisdiction's annual expenditure plan for the use of those funds. Projects identified in this year's AWP represent a wide range of transportation improvements as supported by Measure T. These include funding for the State Route 233 interchange project, shoulder paving projects in various locations, road rehabilitation on Road 222 and Avenue 15, matching funds for state and federal bridge funding, street maintenance throughout the county, including within maintenance districts, the Lake Fourth and Central intersection project, street seals and overlays, various sidewalk projects, transit capital projects, and alley paving in various locations. As you can see, Measure T supports a broad range of transportation needs throughout the county and is frequently used to leverage additional state and federal funding. As the board knows, the current Measure T sales tax will stop being collected on March 31st, 2027. However, we expect to continue receiving cash receipts from the state for several months after that date. We anticipate preparing annual work programs for at least 2 years following the sunset of the tax, while the remaining revenues are received and the current measure is ultimately closed out. We have received questions regarding how these funds will be handled, including the significant carryover balances identified in this annual work program. Any funds carried forward into future fiscal years will continue to be spent in the appropriate categories and consistent with the approved investment plan. Staff will continue to monitor expenditures to ensure compliance with the approved program. Turning to Measure T renewal, collection of that sales tax is scheduled to begin on April 1st, 2027. We expect to begin receiving cash receipts as early as June 2027, although the timing could be later. The first year of allocations for Measure T renewal will be fiscal year 27-28. Therefore, approximately 1 year from now, we anticipate bringing forward a Measure T renewal annual work program outlining how each jurisdiction plans to use its renewal funds in accordance with the approved expenditure plan. Finally, I want to bring to the board's attention that we did receive some written comments regarding this item from Dan Metz and from the Sierra Citizens for Sensible Government. Those comments will be included as part of the public record. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. And I'll answer any questions, and then we can proceed forward for the public hearing.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Great report. Are there any questions from my colleagues regarding the annual work program? Seeing and hearing none, this is a public hearing, so we'll open up a public hearing at this time.
Online.
There's nobody online. Okay, any members of the public? Don't see anybody rushing towards the podium. So we at this time will close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Staff recommends approving the fiscal year 26-27 annual work program. As part of the motion this will also authorize the release of any interest earned in fiscal year 25-26.
Very good.
Make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Just like that. Thank you. Let's go ahead and now miscellaneous, and we'll start with items from staff.
Yes, just a reminder, in case if you missed it, I highly doubt you did miss it, but we will not be holding an August meeting. So our next meeting will be in September. the chairs for my comments, but I wanted to thank Dylan and Jeff for their hard work on the RTP, SES, EIR, harmony analysis, et cetera. They've been working on this for a couple of years. Dylan working with consultants and Jeff with the state and federal government, and Dylan with the federal government, a lot of committees to get to where we're at. And of course, we're not done yet, so approval will be in September, and then they'll turn it around and submit it accordingly. So thank you, Dylan and Jeff, for all your work on this.
Yay,
it's a lot
all
of
right.
work.
They even have matching ties.
And I wanted to congratulate the city of Madera for breaking ground on State Route 145. I see it's definitely under construction now. So congratulations on that.
All right. So very good. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move to items from Caltrans. We have Braden with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Braden Duran. I think I met most of you when I attended the meeting a few months ago with our Deputy Director, Phil Vallejo, Office Chief for Transportation Planning in District 6. Happy to provide some updates today. Just really quickly, just kind of a general office update. So most district staff is in the office now 4 days a week. Some of you may saw that Governor Newsom did send out an executive order that went into effect on July 1st that mandated 4 days in the week for all state employees. So we are following that and are aligned with that. Previously, we were in the office 50% of the time. So that is an update to our operations. Freedom to Drive initiative. I don't know if your director updated you on this a few months ago, but this was a initiative from the US DOT that saw the secretary requesting governors to identify 2 to 5 of their state's worst congestion bottlenecks. And also they wanted us to outline steps to address them. And really this was in hopes to increase collaboration, build projects quicker, etc. So back on June 16th, the California State Transportation Agency did formally submit California's response to the US DOT. The letter highlighted 4 California corridors that we deemed essential to passenger travel and for regional, national, and interregional goods movement. We are pleased that 99 was included as one of the 4 priority corridors. The letter highlighted the significance of the 99. Obviously, it's next to our agricultural sector and whatnot, freight goods movement. We also provided Caltrans headquarters with funding needs for the remaining gaps, including the North Madera 99 project. So we'll keep the board updated if anything else is required of us from this initiative, but obviously we were pleased that 99 was able to be included. Just some funding opportunities. So the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program is going to be coming up again. And then also the Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP Cycle 13, was just launched earlier this month. We've hopefully have disseminated this information to the staff. I know I covered these at the TAC meeting earlier this month, but if there's any questions or further information needed, I'm happy to provide that, but I'll spare us the time. Similar along the lines of what we just talked about, the Yosemite Avenue State Route 145 Downtown Madera Improvement Project. The groundbreaking was last week. Congratulations to the City of Madera. I think it's going to be a great thing for the city and also for residents as they come down to downtown Madera. CTC October meeting. I know it's technically not Madera County, but we are welcoming everyone to the city of Hanford. So every October, generally, we welcome the CTC to the Central Valley. So that will be held in Hanford this go around. We're looking forward to highlighting not just Kings County, but really the Central Valley. We obviously share a lot of different values and characteristics. So we're looking forward to welcoming the commission to our district. That's going to be on October 15th and 16th. Just one quick update from our district maintenance and operations. I think before you all heard our new, we're going to be getting some new encampment crews to address encampments on state right of way. Just an update that hiring is ongoing, and we hope to have the new team in place in September or shortly thereafter. They're currently going through the job advertisement and interview process. Moving on to our project updates. First one is our South Madera 99 6-lane project. I believe that the approval of the contract for construction has been moved up from December 15th of this year to November 4th. That's what at least my update says. We're anticipated still to start that in February 2027. I know that we've been communicating that with staff here at MCTC, but the start date for construction again is going to depend on weather conditions. But I understand that that's the date that we are targeting. Our North Madera State Route 99 6-lane project, we are still, the project team, as well as working with us here in planning, actually are still working on potential VMT mitigation measures. We've made some really good progress with identifying all possible measures. The team is currently calculating VMT reductions for those various measures, and we continue to meet with our partners here in the county, including Public Works, the transit agencies, MCTC. So we're making really good progress on that. Downtown Madera, this is the cap-in project or the improvement project. Don't really think an update is needed, but the construction phase is now underway. So like we just talked about, the groundbreaking was held last week on the 16th. My notes say that we're targeting late spring to early summer next year to complete construction. With the Chowchilla 99 233 interchange improvement project, the right-of-way acquisition process is now underway. So that is the update for this month. I believe for the rehab project going through Oakers, we did meet with Supervisor McCauley and Public Works staff for the county last week. We are working to incorporate, see what's feasible to incorporate from the Oakers mobility study. We're looking to see what we can incorporate into our rehab project. So that is ongoing, and we're happy because this is the best time. We're about to launch into environmental for that project. There are some updated dates that I have for the State Route 41 southbound aux lane that's the one from Route 145 to Road 209. I just note that we have a new PA&ED date targeting March of 2030 and a ready to list date RTL date in 2032. And that would go to construction hopefully in 2033. Similar along the lines, the Austin Quarry southbound lane addition. Updated date for PA&ED of March of 2031, ready to list RTL of 2033, going to construction in 2034. I believe that's all the updates I have for the projects. Of course, if there's another project I didn't reference that we would like an update on, I'm happy to provide that or answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions?
There's a lot in there, so I'm sorry.
I have a question, and it's in regards to the 99 North project. We're talking about VMT mitigation. So was there a study done to show how many more cars that adding those extra lanes were going to produce?
Yeah, generally. So I believe that we use the NCST calculator tool. It's part of the environmental and in the initial kind of study for the project. I believe that they have identified that the project using those calculations would, I want to say it's around 20 or 21 million additional miles. So essentially that's the target for which we're looking to mitigate. There's a possibility that we may not be able to mitigate all of that, but that is the target as of now. I can't though speak to the calculations behind the numbers. I just think that's generally what the team is looking at.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre because you look at that freeway and all it is adding lanes that already take you from one point to another. And how does that calculation show more cars taking that? It's absurd and bizarre. I mean, it's not like it's new road going up to some place and there's going to be some new city or town built, because of this. And I could see that, but this is simply adding lanes. And Herb and Martha, when they go from Madera to Chowchilla, they don't care if there's 4 lanes or 6 lanes. They're still going to make that trip. It's just going to make it safer. And they're not going to go from Madera to Chowchilla because there's an extra lane added. Oh my God, look at that extra lane. Let's go to Chowchilla. So is there any? Who do you talk to? Who do you reason with in this type of insanity? It's really insane. It makes 0 sense to the average person in the state of. If you talk to everybody but a small circle of people that live in Sacramento, it would make 0 sense.
I think that, this is part of our ongoing conversations with our headquarters sustainability team. Those are the folks who, kind of oversee the initiatives related like to VMT mitigation. I think that also there's been discourse about VMT calculations for, rural communities for existing corridors. Obviously can't speak to those, but I generally think that those topics do come up and are generally always kind of debated statewide, especially when it comes to the urban versus rural context. But for this specific project, can't exactly speak to it, but that's what I think.
Well, you don't have to speak. It's already know what you're thinking because you're a reasonable guy and you know it makes zero sense. But I don't know if it's something that we should take up as on our platform or San Joaquin Regional Policy Council or something, because it again, I mean, if you were to sit down and explain this to somebody, they would just go, "What is wrong with you?" They really would. They would question your intelligence. It's a total utter waste of money. And then we run around looking for all this mitigation, that makes zero sense. I mean, it's just, I would be better off if I were to drink the Kool-Aid, but I refuse to drink the Kool-Aid. I guess if I drank it, then I would be like everybody else. And just
Mr. Chair, I think it's safe for me to go ahead and say this. As chair of the Directors Association, we see that same exact concern. And we will be working together. It might be, slowly moving forward, but we feel like we should develop a campaign to present to the legislature and CTC commissioners or anyone who would listen to us about the challenges we face in the rural county area meeting VMT mitigation for these types of projects. So we're looking at potentially some sort of marketing campaign, visual campaign, talking to rural people on the streets, going out into, for instance, certain communities, disadvantaged communities, and getting their opinion on widening of State Route 99, connecting their communities. Is this going to be adding VMT? And then take the technical end and then tie in the technical analysis into it as well. First, we thought about doing a technical white paper. Let's develop this white paper and present it, but it's not real until you talk to people and then have some sort of visual to display. So we will be working on that within the next several months. And we're currently identified a subcommittee to work on it, and they will be developing a recommendation that will be presented to the COG directors and ultimately to the San Joaquin Valley Policy Council, and we'll be moving forward with that. But that's really like beginning discussion at our last COG director meeting that we had, that we thought this is important, that we need to move forward with.
see, there you go. You're ahead of the game. See, you become the COG director or the director of these people, and all of a sudden we start advancing these things. Great job.
No, I don't think so. But there is a current piece of legislation. I don't know the number in front of me, but it identified a number of rural counties that would be exempt from VMT mitigation. Madera was originally included in that. Then, how they do these, gut and amend of pieces of legislation. We were removed from that particular legislation, and then they only identified certain rural county areas. I think it was based on population or what have you. Can't remember the exact reasoning why we were removed from
Just
that.
more nonsense. Yeah.
But there's been work towards that. If Senator Ana Caballero would say that SB 743, for instance, was not meant for rural communities, and it's just something we have to keep fighting and keep moving forward. But we feel like we can develop a piece of work that would be able to present and kind of show our case and present our case to you.
Well, as far as interviewing people, I mean, you could just find anybody on the street, just some random person, and just ask them. So that's really good.
Well, there's other loud voices in the community that get heard, as opposed to the real people that are actually living in these areas their voices need to be heard as well.
Right. Well, whatever I can do in the effort, let me know. I'm happy to be one of those voices, one of those loud voices.
Great idea.
All right. Sorry. I know where you are, Brayden. I just, can't help it sometimes.
I was
Later.
just going to additionally mention that, despite, obviously, we are where we are, but that it just has not stopped the state. The state did identify this project in the new ITIP for additional money for the PS City and right-of-way phases. So obviously the state is still supporting the project, and we obviously think that it's a necessary project. So I know that got reported on earlier this year, I think it was, and obviously Supervisor, I think you were there at the hearing, but we were glad to see that. So
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and go to items from commissioners and Rohi.
I'll report nothing. I'll let Jose go.
Okay, so I will say thank you to staff. I appreciate everything you do with all the reports. And I think our director had mentioned it earlier. I also took my thunder from the CAPM project downtown. We had that ribbon cutting and groundbreaking ceremony. It's great to see a lot of the MCTC staff and also some of the commissioners. Look forward to that project finally coming to fruition. It's been a long time, but I'm glad that's going to happen. Being part of MCTC, I've had the opportunity to be part of several groundbreaking, not only the Cottonwood Creek project that we had, but we also had the 6 lanes from Avenue 17 to 12. And at that time, see, I wasn't around when that was being proposed and all the funding gathered and what have you, but I got the opportunity as a chair to get in front there, speak, and then we had a ribbon cutting. But at that time, I don't know if EMT was the center of the attention at that time.
It was not.
Yes, and I think, with legislation happening, what have you, I think that's happening. The only conclusion that I can come up with is that Caltrans has some insight in the market. They somehow foresee a market crash. People are rushing to Madera, take advantage of the affordable housing, and that increases VMT. I mean, that's the only thing that I can come up with. But other than that, that's all we have. Again, thank you, Caltrans, for being great partners. Again, through MCTC letters of support, and our commissioners and city for making this happen. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to report. I've been trying to schedule my, groundbreaking for 33 times. 20 years.
Stick around. You're gonna do that. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, just
I know. Yeah, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Just keep pushing. Exactly. So thank you. And Letty, any comments?
I have nothing to report. I do want to congratulate the city of Madera. That's part of my district, my supervisorial district. I apologize that I wasn't there. I came down with the flu and I didn't want to spread my germs to anyone. So I did you all a favor by not being there, but I was there in spirit. So congratulations to you all.
Thank you. And the only thing I have to report is on Friday, I've been invited to speak at the Tulare 99 interchange project ribbon cut. So that's going to be a great thing. So.
And that's a big deal because it's State Route 99 coalition effort. And so you will be speaking on behalf of the State Route 99 coalition and partnerships of working together.
Right. What it means. I mean, basically, people are going to say, what's the coalition about? So I'm going to give them some background to tell them why we needed the coalition, because of some of the stuff coming up and, some meeting that we had to have in March of 2022. And so I'll provide a little history and then, all the great benefits from our 99 coalition and Commissioner has been on it. So anyway, it's been a great team. And then at the end of this month, I think it's the last Friday of the month, we have our second to the last road charge technical advisory committee meeting, and it was not renewed because 1421 that was proposed. It was basically the governor said he wasn't going to sign it to continue the technical advisory committee. He cut and ran. He's running for president, and he felt that the Republican Party was going to use that against them, even though it's just simply a study group, something that was going to be renewed after 13 years. So it was definitely some problems with, really the whole legislature, no sense of background stuff. In fact, it was really only Assembly member who introduced it. Lori Wilson. Yeah, Lori's the only one that showed any backbone in the entire legislature. Out of 120, 119 showed zero and one did. But anyway, so that'll be the last one, and I'll have a few remarks at the committee at that time as well.
July 31st.
July 31st. Okay, so
Mr. Chair, what would be, you were to keep that tracking deal? Are you gonna keep that? If you don't need it, I'll take it.
I sent it back in.
Did you?
Yeah. Sent it back in. So that's all I have to report. And with that, I think about Supervisor McDaniel in Merced. He always says, I sense a consensus to adjourn. And that's what I sense here. So we shall adjourn.
Yeah, I gotta go pick up the. Late.